due to timing purposes, but I would like for us to start this presentation with a project that is quite important for me because fortunately I have had the opportunity to see paving works from Mexico to the Patagonia. And one of the companies that has given me a very good impression regarding the way of working, their performance is Bilicis, because in several aspects, from my point of view, they are a role model in terms of works executions. And here we have the author of this paving works. And since it is in Chile, I consider it ours. So I'm very pleased to present it. Therefore, I would like to thank them for this because many of the things that I can tell you, she keeps me updated with all the information. I would like to highlight some interesting details of this works regarding performance and the works in general. This was quite an important milestone because it was the first works that combined the optimization of thicknesses through optimized geometry, this means short slabs, with the incorporation of synthetic fiber. So several milestones took place that set the starting point for a new generation of concrete pavement here in Chile. Of course, there have been several generations of concrete pavement, but I'm referring to the last historical moment where there have been many modifications in the specifications, in the way of building. There have been some technologies incorporated that seemed impossible some years ago, and some of them are even a reflection of what the entire world is looking at here in Chile. Those works had some interesting highlights as well. But now I will let you know about some milestones. For instance, in Route 7 in the region of Aysén, you will find the project El Toqui La Zaranda that was carried out in 2011 under the initiative of Cesar, who was the manager for this section that was quite interesting in the region of Aysén, where we had the opportunity to check the behavior of different types of fibers and the effect that they could have in terms of optimization. This project, according to the words of Cesar, has currently been executed for 4.5 years, an optimal performance in general terms. And for those of you that know the region, you know that Route 7 is the main road of the region without having very high traffic. And this section, despite the fact of being a test section, is a road for definite character. Here we gathered a lot of knowledge. We were able to gather a lot of information, and this project even has a weather station whose purpose is to enrich in some entry data for future projects that are being designed with this methodology. These are some pictures of the last time I visited that section some years ago, and it is in optimal conditions. Another interesting project for us, which was a milestone back then, is the replacement of Route M50 Cauquenes-Chanco. This 15-kilometer project in short slab that is in the 7th region was also a milestone from the point of view of several execution aspects in terms of road works for concrete pavement in Chile. One of the most important details is that a high percentage of the works was carried out in night pavement, which was practically new for those of us that were used to have those types of works in Chile. And it addressed a problem that was substantially dangerous in the execution of this project, given the geographical location of it. And it is that in that zone in particular, thermal gradients could get to a condition of a very severe construction inclination that could worsen the future performance of the pavement. So we tried to go to the source of the problem, and we tried night pavement to reduce that risk. These pictures have been taken from the Street View Google Maps platform. And I wanted to bring them in from there because many times when I show pictures in my presentations, people say, right, he took the best angle of the pavement. But the truth is that this is not the case. I take the picture that I believe is the most representative one. And as a proof of my independence in this issue, I would like to invite you to do a virtual tour through the road to see that I took a random section that represents the condition of the short slab pavement. There you can see the historical record. Even in some of the roads, there are several repetitions of the travelings of the Google equipment that allow me to see over time how they have been evolving. Here are some details. I already talked about night pavement. And another important detail to mention has to do with what Robert said regarding the implementation of maturity in Chile to enable the opening to traffic in the projects hired by MOP. Currently, this is a benefit because one of the aspects where concrete pavement is vulnerable is the feeling that I have to wait a long time until I open it to traffic, with the possibility of not only measuring maturity, but also processes that make concrete more mature and that can allow opening to traffic. The benefit that it implies is what happened in this project, for instance. And according to what the supervisor reported, we're talking an average of about 4 or 5 days until the opening to traffic under normal conditions. And I'm talking not only of lightweight traffic, the entire route under normal circumstances. You see that we have those typical Scania trucks. We're already driving through the road after the third or fourth date of executing the works. And that is an important milestone in terms of what a contractor needs today, which is to speed up processes. This makes this possible, and they also imply a scale economy. All these projects at the beginning were possible thanks to modifications in their specific specifications, and in the extent that a bank of information was being built that allowed us to have the tools to do this in the best way possible, comes the instruction on new technologies, on technical specifications for pavement. This was the work of the road laboratory. I have Marcela here, and we have worked very well together. We have Cesar also. I already named you, so it's important for you to keep this in mind. These guidelines, despite the fact that it is a document that was published in 2012, we have looked at all the mechanisms to distribute it. I always run into the fact that there are people that do not know about its existence, but it is very important because some of the technologies still are not part of the road manual. This document enables them to be used in Chile. So thanks to this documentation, and we will have to update it at some point to the new experiences that we have had over time after 2012, is a document that you can access through us through pavimentando.cl, where you can download this document, or by contacting us, and obviously with the National Road Laboratory. And it's important for you to read this document because it enables many of the technologies that can be used currently. This is another initiative that I want to highlight because this is the joint work of Regional Metropolitana. At a given moment, do we have someone from Metropolitana here? They told us about their problems, their needs. In this case, it was Route 57, the old access to Colina, and it had a problem that the asphalt that they were placing had a scarce permanence over time, and they wanted something more that lasted longer. And this is how we looked at the possibility of incorporating a short slab concrete in this access. You can actually visit it, and we inspected several times because this is the closest one that we have to Santiago in terms of short slabs. And once again, these are images of Google Maps and Street View to show you a representative picture of that pavement, how it used to be in 2012, when we visited for the first time and we made the decision to intervene it, and how it looks now in June 2014, according to Google. In the summer of 2013, we did the execution of the construction. Here are some pictures of January 2013. And here, the pictures that Google took were in the construction process, which was in November 2012, where we started the works, and it ended in January. And in April 2013, it was already in service. And afterwards, there have been several updates where you can see the current conditions of that pavement. Some contracts have been signed, 15 kilometers, one 28 kilometers, the other in Chiloé. These are pictures of Route 5 of the section Colonia Yungay Quellón that is already finished, and these are pictures of the execution phase where some incorporations of aspects were done in terms of the wet layer to help for the curing and maturity process for the concrete blanket to open it to traffic quickly, or some other measures due to the weather of Chiloé that is very changing. Sometimes I have a sunny day with very good conditions for paving, and then in 15 minutes I have heavy rain. So we had to make some preventions in terms of rain, wind, which are very characteristic of Chiloé. The tenting section is longer, but here in the picture I'm showing you the first part of it. This picture shows a very interesting detail. Up to the transversal section of the Colonia Yungay section, obviously it is an asphalt pavement. You can realize which was the section and the plotting that it had. And this is my picture. It is almost of the same place, and you can notice the difference in it. And I'm showing you this because in the case of these kind of pavements, it is not the opportunity of improving it, but also it gives you an economy and resources where you can get, with the same amount of money, a section and an improvement of the road. And this is what we have achieved with the incorporation of optimized pavements as a general project. So probably with other conditions and in structures, it would have been impossible to get to that level of improvement in the route. So we have cross sections that are interesting in the island and that they didn't have before, and that reduce traveling distances from Puerto Montt to Quellón. Here I can tell you many stories of how long I took to get to Quellón and how much time I take to get there now that the route is practically finished. This is the next section for Compu. It is still under execution. It has been in progress, but it is still under execution. Here we have a Bergen truck 450 that is working there. We also took this image from Google Maps, and it shows what we're about to finish in the project. Here we have the movements and displacements that we had to make to incorporate a section, and the short slab project that has been in progress in a high percentage. This route has still not been finished. Some kilometers are missing still, but they have progressed with a large percentage.
In 2014, we're talking about the improvement project of the Y56 to 57. We're updating the images for my presentation. As you can see, the nature of this project, a more current image of the same. This gives you a vision of the quality of the finishing. This is one of the most critical issues that we have today in different projects in Chile. We have to adopt measures, sometimes with very basic tools, to make some adjustments. We can ask our friends from LACE how we can do this with the edges and others. This is a project that's about to begin. Here, I'm accompanied by the person who will execute it and with whom I hope to have a lot of images for our coming presentations. And he will be in charge of a project, a powder project. Why? This is fantastic because it's a great challenge in terms of geometry. We haven't done this before, but we know that he will be able to do it. We will do create an important structure with short slabs. It's located over the old asphalt pavement. And so this would be an overlay, a not adhered overlay. And if you notice, so you can see the order of magnitude involved. Sometimes the kilometers can distract you. Is it 15 kilometers long, or in Yungay as well? But that's a simple section. It's a double pavement. Imagine we're talking about 66 cubic meters of concrete to be placed. And this is an interesting figure. It will begin the second semester this year. There's another project underway that's just been awarded. It's the section of 257, Highway 257. And we are referring here to 45 kilometers of length that will start to be constructed in the coming months. There's also a project in the phase of it was tendered, and this is a bypass, Castro bypass. It's around 22,899 cubic meters of concrete for value in pesos of 25 million. And this is also a project concerning short slabs. Changing the switch, changing over and going from projects for high transit short slabs. There is a second possibility that derives from the short slabs that we have been pushing for recently, that will be interesting not just for Chile but other Latin American countries, which has to do with what we call ultra thin pavements of fiber concrete. This is for low transit roads, unlike Pólvora route, the powder route, and others that have significant traffic. We're talking about an application that is a niche that until recently seemed to be impossible to take on, which is low transit roads. For persons who are not familiar with this, for low transit, they say concrete would be impossible to use here. But as a consequence of technological changes incorporated in recent years, we can already reduce costs and make it possible to implement these solutions at the level that you have heard probably, which are the basic roads or intermediate basic roads. To think about, we have an alternative that's cost effective and competitive, and I could get a more prolonged life cycle in time, and so this is highly attractive. And so we're thinking about how we can bring this solution closer, which we know has already been implemented and that has already been put up for bidding by the ministry. So these are projects that have a certain profile, we could at least open up possibilities and implement solutions of this type. And what's most outstanding in terms of time in service is Mawidanchi and Mission Inglesa in the 9th region, which was which ended in 2012. It's been in service for more than 3 years. These are photos that I took every time I go to Temuco. I go to Mawidanchi and I take these pictures, which basically shows what we have as a structure. I took these pictures 2 weeks ago. I went to seminar in Temuco and I visited the section, and obviously it's impeccable. Thinking that these are concrete structures with 8 centimeters, 9 centimeters in the center and 11 in the edges, supported over the platform that existed before. There was no incorporation of any base, but we took advantage of the good support capacity that the existing pavement had for a road that was already being used for vehicular traffic for a long time. And if it hadn't been intervened with this ultra-thin pavement, it probably a solution of double treatment would have been incorporated that does need a base and that would need the double treatment to have a competent structure. In this case, what's interesting is that this solution is already 3 years in service and it will be lasting for a few more years. It depends on this depends on the location, the climate conditions, traffic, and in some cases it could have very extended durations. I've seen some that have lasted many years, and I've also seen double treatments that in more critical situations, probably in 6, 8 months or 1 year, it's important to renovate it. And this is where precisely this alternative becomes interesting, because if the two are comparable in cost and one can give me a longer term solution, that's where this solution would fit perfectly. I'm not saying that it will fit with all the projects, but we do have a new window open with different possibilities for new pavements in the country. Another section that's relatively close by, this initiative that we achieved thanks to the regional government, the Highway Administration of Valparaiso. Here I'd like to point out, here's a person from the regional government, regional administration that can tell us more, and I want to thank them because they gave us all of the facilities to construct this section with characteristics that are very similar to what we've been discussing today, so that we could apply the ultra-thin pavement and so that they could see, and we asked them to come here so that they could see that it's possible. They were talking about the section with low transit, and they didn't believe us too much. But since they have seen the pavements that are already in service, they've changed their perspective. So this was the original condition of the road in 2013. That's how it looked. Obviously, this is a very critical day on a very rainy day with a lot of puddles and a manifestation of the holes in the road. And it was a platform that just with the reprofiling could be improved because it had good support capability. And the pavement was built on top of it in September 2013. In October 2014, this was how it looked, quite good. Other photos. In fact, I always make the comment that how content the roadway would have been because the sun came out and the flowers came out. For those who don't believe me that I take pictures in special situations, I also invite them that in Google Maps they visit and look at the pavement and how it looked before. It's an alternative that you can see. That's what the transversal section looked like with gravel, and now with concrete. Here's another view. Here you have the short, ultra thin slabs, and also the nearby slabs also. And now we'll be wait for some details on the dosages. It would be very interesting. This will be Murta. This will be a longer section of 4 kilometers. And at one point, we will show you what's happening with this project. Meantime, there have been some interesting administrative sites. These are the instructions for submitting a tender for basic intermediate roads. This was done last year in 2014, and in it, basically, here they incorporated possibility in the instructions that thin concretes could be considered as an alternative. And this, even if it seems quite subtle, it makes a big difference because practically it gives a huge backing to the solution that it can technically be used, and today by the Ministry of Social Development and of Public Works. And so this is decisive for us. This can be decisive for us. And based on the success of the incorporation of this technology, the Ministry of Public Works also became interested in giving them, making it possible for them to receive preliminary designs when they're surveying the initiatives. And this is a work that's in the development of a guide for structural development of thin concrete for low transit roads. And this alternative allows us to quickly design, and with some inputs that are very simple, what the characteristic of the pavement that would be needed would be, and for a low transit project. The guide is very simple. It's got different graphs, and it talks about the existing terrain characteristics, and if a new base would have to be put in. And here we use OptiPave. We have been working hard on training in Santiago and the regions to bring OptiPave to more people. So we've had several workshops in Santiago and in regions, and we had a seminar in Temuco, and in June in Concepcion. We will reach the cities that will request this from us. And today, there are many regions that are interested in the institution conducting a workshop in their venues. Also, I'd like to point out that not just in recent works have large works been done, also certain significant works in other areas. For example, the recent termination of the apron in Arturo Merino Benitez Airport. This was done by OHCL, and this is the part of the works for extending the airport apron. It's already finished, and the carriage is ready. We just have to need, we have several paving trains ready. We just need to know of the projects, and also equipment has arrived in Chile for reinforcing other types of pavement. For example, this in the 10th region, it's already underway. Urban pavements or industrial pavements. Here, Carlos Curoto is here. He was driving the equipment. I put him in the picture so that it would appear that it wasn't international, but in Puerto Montt. And also, we have another friend working in this other project. This is in Puerto Montt by the Public Works Service. This has also had to do with many other projects that were carried out manually, and so new technology has begun to be used. There are many more projects in concrete than 5 years ago. This photo is a little older. This is just to mention that there are quite a lot of fleets of pavers that are anxious for us to use them in different works. And finally, I'd like to mention another type of activities that we've also been working with, and we wish to continue developing. This research work that we're carrying out together with the municipality of Providencia. We're being supported by the Highway Administration, and we have made an attempt to explore the possibility and technical viability of incorporating the new generation of surface textures in urban pavements, generating attributes that can benefit this type of roadways. We're improving, and I'd like to invite you to visit Bilbao, the north pavement facing west, where you cross Tobalaba and head west. You will notice this pavement that's been recently intervened on, and that's already using what's called the new generation of surface textures, incorporating brushing and grooving in concrete pavements. There are many more things that we will be telling you about in the near future. And so those who are interested in all of this, we can continue conversing. With Francisco, we've already been talking because there are opportunities for all of this. All that's left is for me to hand the floor to Roberto Alvarez, who has been collaborating with us in terms of the translation of the book, Guide to Concrete Overlays. In Spanish, we translated it as Guías sobre capas de hormigón. An anecdote: the aspiration to produce this book, when we accepted the challenge, was a book that would transcend Latin America. We wanted to do a neutral translation that would be understandable, mainly for Chileans, but also transversal in Latin America. The first obstacle we met was that the terminology associated to what we know as recapado, overlay. So the title that the book should have in Chile would probably be Guide for Recapados with Concrete as a text. But that word in some countries is not is a controversial term, so we wanted a universal term that would not generate much confusion. So we've called it reinforcement layers with concrete. I'd like to invite Roberto, who will tell you some anecdotes about the book. So, Roberto, the floor is yours, and later I'll accompany you with a few more things.
Recapado era la palabra. Good afternoon. I will try to give you an idea of what the document that you already have in your hands has, with the hope of making you read it completely. The Institute of Cement and Concrete is giving currently the translation of a document of around 150 pages that provides an updated general overview of how to address the rehabilitation of existing pavements through the overlaying of concrete. The guide for concrete overlays in its third edition was published by the National Concrete Pavement Technology Center in May 2014. It includes not only a broad range of technical aspects of this type of solution, but also, among others, aspects related to the organization and management of construction areas, on how to face the relationships with the people affected by the works, and how to minimize the times that it takes to materialize works. As it is mentioned within the text itself, the following are the main scopes and objectives of this document. The guideline for concrete overlays has the purpose of filling room of knowledge and answering the questions of the owners of pavements so that they can include the necessary concrete reinforcements as a reliable tool and make more informed decisions on their design and construction. The guideline is not a manual to follow step by step. It doesn't provide any formulas or specifications to design or build overlays projects as the title says, its objective is to provide expert consulting that can add to the experience and the own judgment of who designs and builds. The guideline also intends to help the owners to understand and appreciate the versatility of the solutions for concrete overlays. A common conceptual error is believing that concrete overlays are limited to projects that require long-term solutions from 20 to 35 years, and that other options would adapt better for short-term solutions from 5 to 15 years. It is also common to believe that concrete overlays are onerous or difficult to build or that they are niche solutions with limited applications. In practice, there are overlay solutions for all types of pavements, concrete, asphalt, or compost, whatever the condition that they are in. Since the concrete distributes loads in a very extended area, the one to be rehabilitated does not experience highly concentrated stress. Therefore, when pavement is stable and it provides even characteristics, it can be rehabilitated with a concrete overlay. Here, there were some concepts pointed out in the document regarding its scope and purposes. Although, with what we have mentioned, seems to lay very clear what this guideline refers to, in my opinion, it contains information that goes beyond the strictly related to overlays. Therefore, I believe that it should become an important document for all those that are interested in design, construction, and maintenance of concrete pavement. The most relevant characteristics that this guideline presents are, in my opinion, the following. It is a very updated document because it was published in English 1 year ago. Therefore, it contains the most updated information regarding the techniques related to overlays specifically, but also it contains very important information related to the design, construction, and construction of concrete pavement in general. It proposes procedures and it has conditions coming not only from academic studies or successful publications, but also through a thorough analysis of a group of specialists who visited many works in the United States looking at failures and successes. You know that a good analysis of a failed project many times helps more to improve than studying a lot of successful projects. Another relevant aspect of this document has to do with the fact that mainly for those of us that work in this area in this country, that even when it is oriented to concrete overlays, these are forced to refer constantly to the influence of weather and some properties of concrete mixes. Overlays are usually thin. And this means that they have a relationship of surface and volume greater than a conventional pavement, which makes them specifically sensitive to weather conditions and to certain properties of the mix of concrete. You know that from the conditions given us by weather in an important part of our country. So, what the document describes for an overlay is completely matches completely the conditions that we have for new pavements. Having said this, it is inferred that the document being presented contains a lot of relevant information, not only useful to design, build, and maintain overlays, but also for any kind of conventional concrete pavement. Within the several technical aspects addressed and that are applicable to any type of concrete pavement, I would like to highlight as an example the importance given to the following three aspects that I am mentioning because they solve or minimize the problems that usually our pavements present. First, use in concrete mixes aggregates of continuous granulometry. Second, to make sure that the procedures used in curing together with joint sawing are the proper one. These are the two aspects to which we do not give the necessary importance. And third, do not provide the pavement to traffic according to a previously agreed time as part of the specifications, but according to the resistance obtained in the field, where obviously weather conditions have an important influence. The weather conditions between the moment of placing the concrete and opening the pavement to traffic. They will also be useful for any type of pavement, and especially those located in urban and suburban areas. The suggestions, procedures, and systems described to handle work areas. The document addresses both aspects that have to do with construction as well as user traffic management, also for pedestrians, commerce, and nearby neighbors. Under the perspective of minimizing interferences in the community, together with making the best profit of the project, controlling costs. Finally, the descriptions, scopes, and procedures are included to achieve what is called an accelerated construction, which are also applicable to any type of pavement works. What is defined as accelerated construction does not refer to use very fast grouting concrete. Usually in these types of works, conventional materials are used, but with some changes in key procedures. It is about defining an organization around the concretion of the project that allows to minimize total timings for construction, not only a quick delivery of a recently built pavement. To summarize, and as it is said in the cover of the document, it is a practical approach to understand and use successfully concrete reinforcement overlays from the selection to the opening to traffic. And I would also like to add that it is a compilation of many of the main factors that affect the quality of concrete pavement and how to solve them in practice. Thank you. Well, as Roberto has presented the document that you already have in your hands, it is the turn to refer to the text and to thank some people for their work in this document. First of all, I would like to mention our sponsors. To be able to have such a book and for you to have it with you wouldn't have been possible without the collaboration of Cementos Vio Vio, EPC, Melon, Lace, and TC Pavement, who supported us as sponsors for this publication that we gave to you. And I would like to highlight the support that they give us for this work and to be able to give it to you today. So I would like for you to consider these companies that believe in these projects, because we have many projects in the future that of this type. Secondly, I would like to mention something very personal and specific. When we started with the intention of creating this text, we knew that it was something current, and we knew that it had a lot of information beyond overlays. It also has a compilation of many things that were going to contribute to concrete pavements in Chile and in Latin America in general. When we were thinking about how we could translate this book, we had a previous experience translating the book of analysis of life cycle cost, and many of you may know about this. And we said, no, we need someone to be able to help us with their knowledge, and someone who has had experience on writing such technical texts in terms of design, construction, and maintenance. So I called in Roberto for this, and he accepted the challenge. And to me, whatever came after was quite special, because we created a work team with Roberto and Carla Rifo, and the three of us spent entire afternoons for a long time checking paragraph by paragraph and phrase by phrase the best way to say it in Spanish. Roberto had done some impeccable writing work. I was surprised by how easy it was for him to translate such a complex text, and to me this was an impressive learning experience. It was very fun to do this. We acquired a lot of knowledge. I said with Carla that many times you believe that you know so much, but then you realize that you learn every day. I would like to mention what this team has done. And also, I would also like to mention Robert, who took the time to review it, to add his notes, as he has done before. He has been our international reviewer for the document, and I would like to thank Robert for spending his own time by helping us for this. And for all of them, I would like to ask you for an applause.
And now, I'd like to give myself space for expressing my recognition to Roberto Alvarez with great affection. We'd like to thank him, not just for having helped us with this book, but I don't know if you know, Roberto is our president of the Commission of Concrete Pavements, and he's taken the time for years to accompany us unfailingly, practically, 99.9% of the sessions, and he's always been a steadfast companion going through works that we've been consolidating through the years, and that allows us to state with pride that we've achieved important achievements in changing norms for concrete in Chile. So on behalf of the Institute, Chilean Institute of Concrete, we'd like to give him a small present by way of recognition from the Institute. Very good. And so We'd like to invite you to have a coffee break, and so that we can listen to the final session with Robert, so that we can